Hi everyone, my name is Katie Groves, and this video is for people who look at or who have had a problem with looking at child exploitation images and films. I want to first say that showing any empathy towards abusers is often met by the general public with extreme abuse. There is a deep irony to that, and I'm not going to go into that here. But I just want to say that I anticipate I'm going to get a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of hate from the comments because I do not condemn child abusers. I think that while a lot of the people who are going to watch this are already going to be familiar with my story, I want to summarize where I'm coming from on this issue so that anyone who's new to my channel who's watching this video as the first introduction to my channel understands what my background is. I'm a survivor of child trafficking and Monarch mind control programming. I was born into multigenerational Satanic ritual abuse, child trafficking. My parents were born into Project MK in the 1950s. I was born into Project Monarch / MK in the 90s. I was kept alive to be trained as a perpetrator. I was trained to abuse children as well as take abuse as a child. And I was very much conditioned to become a perpetrator who enjoyed perpetrating. A huge part of my training was to totally and completely dissociate from my empathy and from any sense that I was human and that others were human. I was deeply objectified, and I was taught to deeply objectify others. And this led me to lack a lot of empathy for what I was experiencing and for what those around me were experiencing. And that made it a lot easier for my perpetrators to train me to abuse others. While I have come to the conclusion that I am not a pedophile and I do not have the desire to hurt children, I was trained to think that I was. And I did develop something I've not been diagnosed with, but something I fit a lot of the symptoms of. That is called Pedophilia OCD, which is the obsessive compulsive terror of being or becoming a pedophile. Not pedophilia itself, but it is a desperate fear that one is going to become or is a pedophile. And this led me to actually have a lot of empathy for pedophiles who do not want to offend, who are struggling not to offend, and so on. And it's not that I have no empathy for pedophiles who do not have regard for children, who offend and enjoy offending and have no remorse. That's just a lot harder for me to understand. So, all that being said, I wanted to make this video because I've had a lot to say for a long time to people who look at child exploitation images and films. Not just people who abuse children physically, but people who look at children being abused online and in other forms, on other platforms. When I was 18, I found a child sexual abuse image of myself on a porn site. This was a porn site that I was programmed to be on at the time. And I want to be clear that I was not intentionally looking at child pornography. But I did find this picture of myself. And as I was deeply waking up from the trauma-based mind control programming I had endured, but I was not completely awake, I was able to connect with this picture and recognize it partially as myself. When I saw the picture, I was sort of able to see that it was me, but then I dissociated from it pretty quickly. And it wasn't until months later that I was able to actually accept that it was me. And this picture hit me particularly hard because it was on a most favorited section, or most viewed, but I think it was most favorited. And it had over 1 million hits. And seeing that really put into perspective just how widespread this problem is, and just how personal it all was to me. And I even read some of the comments that people left on the picture, and that was excruciatingly painful. And I share this because, well, I share this for multiple reasons. The first reason is because since seeing those comments, at least one of whom I think was from a woman, or someone who at least imagined themselves being me in the image, I've really thought a lot about the people who commented. I've thought a lot about how, just like I and the other girl who was in the picture were human and are human, even though we were being deeply objectified, the people who commented are also human. And in fact, I could really feel and see just how human they were from the things they were saying. And this may sound really odd to some people, because it is very common to demonize and objectify abusers in other ways. Not just objectify the victims, but we really tend as a culture to objectify the abusers and demonize them and make them into monsters and lose sight of their humanness. And so it is to you that I'm speaking. It is to all of you who have ever looked at this stuff, gotten off on it, or failed to recognize how human the victims were. It is to all of you who've left comments glorifying and sexualizing children in these images. And this is even for people who look at adults being exploited, who have objectified and dehumanized them in these ways. I want you to know that I see you as human, and I want you to know that what I want from you is not for you to burn in some fiery pit of hell like a lot of victims seem to want. It is for you to think deeply about what I'm saying, and to think deeply about the children in these images and films who really went through the traumas you are seeing. And I want you to think about any comments that you have ever left on any of these images or films. And I want you to think about how it would feel for the victims if they were to actually go onto those websites and read what you wrote and feel it. Really, really feel the pain. And I know that not all of you who are watching this, to whom this applies, will be able to do this. If not now, then ever. But I myself was programmed for perpetration, and I myself, through thinking in the ways I'm describing, was able to break that cycle, was able to start reassociating with my empathy and see the victims as human. And really what it took was for me to see this image of myself and to see myself as human. And so that is really a core of the message that I want to give, is that it might not be enough to think about the children, the other children, as being victims and human. You may have to face your own traumas, whatever traumas have led you to want to look at this stuff in the first place. And I know that there is debate about what causes pedophilia, and I'm not here to go too much into that, but I do think that for a lot of people who are drawn to child exploitation, it is because they themselves were exploited or abused in some other way. And so I really want to encourage people to recognize that a lot of their desires may be trauma-based, and that if you're willing to heal your trauma, you may be able to stop this cycle. You may be able to face what you've done and move forward from it, I mean to say. And I want to say that I have empathy for you as victims. For those of you who are exploited yourselves, I want you to know that I understand your pain. You are not alone. And I also want to say, because I mentioned pedophilia, that I also understand that not everybody who looks at this stuff and is drawn to it is a pedophile. That there is, of course, an overlap between those who are and those who are pedophiles, but not everybody who's drawn to this stuff is. And I actually made a video called In Support of Non-Offending Pedophiles that I'm going to put a link to in the description below that goes into some of that. And that is also something that has been misunderstood by others and been met with some demonization. A video of mine that's really been met with some abuse. People really have a tendency to confuse support of abusers not abusing with support of abusers abusing. And the level of confusion there to me is almost laughable, but I can also understand that too. So to anybody who's found what I've said here offensive, I really encourage you to look at why. I want you to know that I deeply understand having rage towards abusers. I'm not saying that I'm free of it, or that I'm in a state of total, complete, Zen-like forgiveness for everyone to whom I'm speaking and speaking about. But through introspection and trauma work, I have found a lot of healing. I have found a lot of forgiveness, and I do not think that makes me a bad person, because I am able to empathize with those who do bad things. Okay, that's all I've got to say for this video. I hope that this has helped people. And while I absolutely encourage people to reach out in the comments, I want to warn anybody, although I'm sure you probably know this, I want to warn anybody who struggled with these issues that right now my channel is getting a lot of attention at once. And some of that attention is from very, very abusive people. So I would be careful in what I share right now in the comments. And if you want to talk to me, I do welcome you to email me. I'll put my email in the description below. I'm very afraid of that. I will honestly say that I am afraid of being in direct personal communication with people who are exploiting or have exploited children. But I do want you to know that I am here to support you. And if you email me, I will respond if I can. And I will respond with all the empathy that I have. Thank you.